The F-104 has been rather popular with the community lately. I think it's largely just because of the battle rating changes in the 8.0 to 9.0 area. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about, and specifically so the F-104A and C models at 9.3 in the US tech tree have been wreaking havoc on subsonic Korean war jets for far too long. And in the wake of all of this, it's very easy to forget that there's actually other F-104s in the game that aren't at 9.3. Yes, I know, I've forgotten about them too. So I've decided I'm going to take this video to give a bit of attention to some of these F-104s that really nobody even cares about anymore, and mainly so because somebody left a comment asking me to go back and review them a little while ago. Which reminds me, guys, I'm always taking requests. Let me know what you want me to play next down in the comments below. I'm getting pretty bored of this game as I wait for AMRAMs to come out, so any ideas are rather appreciated. Before we look into my favorite F-104, I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, GE for War Thunder. GE for War Thunder is an app available on the Google Play Store in which you will complete tasks of varying difficulty that dictate how many golden eels you will earn for free. Generally, the harder or more time consuming a task is, the more golden eagles you will get from it in the end. I can also host giveaways using the golden eagles you guys accumulate by using my link in the description down below, and use my code on screen for 10 extra golden eagles. Back to the starfighters, the F-104G is definitely, not just the G, all the 10.7 F-104s are definitely my favorite ones to play because they have countermeasures, so you can reliably just dodge all of the incoming missiles. It's not something like in the F-104A at 9.3 where if somebody shoots a 9L at you or an R60M at you, sometimes you'll just die depending on the launch range and the speed and all that. But it's not such a high battle rating at 11.0 or god forbid even 11.3 to where you're fighting F-16s and MiG-29s and F-14s literally all the time, because that becomes quite frustrating. And we are going to get to some of those F-104s toward the end of the video, but for now let's just enjoy the F-104G at 10.7. You get 4 AIM-9Ps, which are not bad, but they're not great by any means, specifically at this battle rating. Of course, if you were to take these into a full up tier, you'd really be kind of an unfortunate soul flying around that with only 4 AIM-9Ps. And perhaps maybe even your Vulcan might become your primary weapon. That is something awesome about all of the F-104s, is they have a lot of Vulcan ammo, which does come in handy. And while you can just carry a match in the 9.3 starfighters if you get that lucky down tier once in a while, that's not so much the case with these higher battle rating starfighters. You do have to be vigilant, you have to be in the battle, fully aware of your surroundings, making the most out of what your teammates give you, but it's by no means really a carry plane. I wouldn't necessarily call it a third party plane per se, but it's not something that you can just take a 1 versus 4 with regularly and come out on top. It does require team play, and it does require some other distractions, because if people do get on your tail, you know, you're a starfighter, there's nothing you're going to be doing except running away. And even running away at 10.7 and especially at 11.0 and 11.3, there are a lot of planes at those higher battle ratings that actually will just catch you and outrun you. So you got to be very careful, and you do have to work with your teammates. Kind of goes without saying that you want to stay fast, you want to keep your speed. If a starfighter is slow, it's pretty much free food for just about anybody. Sure, you could flare away a missile, but you're probably not going to be flaring away their guns as they get within gun range. It can pull some pretty high It can pull some pretty high AOA on It can pull some pretty high AOA on low fuel loads, and especially when you've held down the elevator for like 2 or 3 seconds, all of a sudden it just gets this burst of angle of attack where it starts pulling literally like 15 Gs on low fuel. I'm not kidding. But that only lasts for like a solid 2 seconds, and then you're right back to normal F-104 turn speed, which is not that great. So while you might not necessarily be the fastest plane in every lobby you are in, the engine power is plentiful, and it is easy to stay fast in this thing, especially just because it does not maneuver well. So bleeding speed is pretty damn difficult. As you saw me complete that loop up there before diving back down on the F-111, it just doesn't like to move, especially on low IAS. And for those who don't know the difference, because there are still some people out there that don't run both IAS and speed indicator, which I think you absolutely should, IAS is more of like your maneuvering speed. You can think of it as it's how much airflow is kind of over your flight surface controls. So at lower altitudes it'll be high number because the air is dense and there's a lot of it. It'll maneuver very easily. Whereas at high altitude, the air is not very dense, there's not a lot of it passing over your flight controls, and so it's not going to be maneuvering as easily. So even though you're at 1,000 kilometers an hour at 10,000 meters, your IAS might tell you it's basically like being at 300 kilometers an hour on the deck, if that makes sense. So I use speed to let me know how fast I really am going, and then I use IAS so that I know how well I'm going to be maneuvering in the given situation I'm in. On screen, we had an F8U and an A10. We're able to kill the A10 because he's focused on the teammate, and the F8U is staying nice and slow because he does also have to worry about my teammate. And so that puts me in a position where I can kind of just abuse energy on him. I have a lot more speed than him, and he just continuously sheds his energy away. Not exactly well played on the enemy team's part, but it again kind of goes back to the F104 does need a little bit of help if you're going to be getting kills in it. To finish out the match, I unfortunately had a Kfir Canard who wanted to go bomb bases because it's a premium plane, and obviously there's no better way to grind on War Thunder than tapping spacebar on stationary bomb targets. And so I pull a 180 for him. I know he's got bombs on. I know he's going to be absolutely no threat to me right now, so I'm going to try my best to catch him, but even with bombs on, he's kind of cooking. Of course, I will catch up to him at this rate, but it's more of a question of will I get to him before he gets those bombs off, because if he gets the bombs off, or the rockets in this case, then he's honestly faster than me in most situations, especially if he's got a little bit of altitude under his belt. He is going to smoke me in a straight line. So I want to try to get to him before he realizes that, even if he maybe wouldn't realize that. Given that he had bombs on his plane or rockets, I kind of get the impression that he's probably not very well versed in air-to-air, and so I'm pretty confident just staying out here 1 versus 1 with him. Not necessarily a dogfight because I don't want to be getting slow and maneuvering hard turns with a Kfir, even a Kfir Canard, but I am going to take him alone because I have a lot more speed than him right now. He doesn't really seem to know what he's doing, and it should be easy enough as long as I hold on to this energy advantage that I have. I do have some missiles, or I have 1 missile left over, and I don't really anticipate it hitting, but either way I want to try to get him slow again to catch up to him. Has a lot of acceleration. He could get away from me at any moment if I don't keep the pressure on. So I am going to apply pressure. I'm going to get a quick clean burst with the Vulcan in, which never happens anymore, and that ends the match. So I hope that little high kill match activated some of your neurons and satisfied you for the video, because this match is a lot more akin to what I usually get out of the F104. And again, maybe it's a skill issue. I don't play this game that much anymore, so I wouldn't argue with you, but either way, the F104, as I said, is just not much of a carry plane. You need your teammates, and this match is going to show you just that. I start off on the deck. I kind of spot a lot of the enemy players. I don't want to get too focused or too caught up in any particular one of these guys. It's just too early in the game for me to commit too much energy onto any single one of these guys. There's a lot of targets to choose from, but I'm going to simply ignore them. I have flares. If they want to waste all their missiles on me, then go right ahead. I have no problem flaring any of these missiles, and so this is honestly useful to my team just because of how many missiles I'm burning right off the start of the match like this. Now I'm just going to kind of fly around and send these guys back toward my teammates. I'm not going to panic and start trying to make them overshoot or anything like that. I have plenty of speed. Literally all I have to do is fly in a straight line back toward my teammates. And again, I could not win a situation like this, even this F4S sticking right behind me like that. If I was alone in a 1v1 and he just started on my 6 like that, I would be relying on him to mess that up. And so that's what I mean by the F104. Not necessarily a third party plane, but it does need help. And looking at the match as I loaded in, I did realize I was in an 11.3 game, so I kind of figured there'd be some F4Ss, which means Sparrows with long range capability at high altitude especially, so obviously I'm just going to stick to the deck the entire game for situations like this. This F104S with that Sparrow could have killed me if I had not been hugging the ground like that. So when I get an up tier like this, I definitely just hug the ground the entire time because it is not worth trying to notch and chaff the SAR missiles. Now that I've brought that initial group of planes that was behind me kind of back toward the team, a little bit of a furball has started. My teammates have engaged, the enemies have lost interest in me, and now I'm able to actually start working on getting myself a kill. And so I find somebody that's kind of focused on a teammate, but not really taking a kill by any means. Shoot a missile at somebody on the 6 of that MiG-23. That's a kill. He didn't see it coming. And again, this Jaguar with an F5 on his 6 also does not see the missile coming, and that's it. That's all I do for this match, is I get those 2 kills, and that's not that unusual. That's pretty much what I do with the Starfighter on a regular basis. You get in the match pretty early, especially low altitude. A lot of people get on your 6, a lot of people thirst over you, and you just drag them toward your team and you initiate the furball. Once everyone's busy with it, you just kind of come back around while everyone's not paying attention and pick off who you can from your teammates. But what about when you're at battle rating 11.0 and there's F16s in your game? Well, I honestly play it pretty much the exact same way, especially that low to the ground part of it, because you're going to be fighting F4Ss a lot more frequently. You're going to be fighting Tomcats, people with aim 7F Sparrows, and it's just not worth it, as I said, to try to notch and chaff them. So my playstyle is still very much the same. I'm going to hug the deck. I'm going to stay left because that's what top tier is. You take off and you fly left with your team. And I'm pretty much just looking for when the furball starts and where it starts and just be ready to jump in. It's really not that much different from pretty much every other top tier plane at this battle rating. It's just you have a lot less leeway. Sure, flares are get out of jail free cards in many cases, but it is a lot easier to overcommit resources, time, and physical energy from your plane on one or two targets that you probably shouldn't be doing in the Starfighter than it is something like an F-16 or an F-14 or a Mirage or a J-7E. You know, all these other planes that still have plenty of engine power, plenty of thrust to weight, but they are actually maneuverable and they can defend themselves as they get a little bit slower. That's just not the case with the F-104. So it is a bit more of a strict play style, but it is still very similar to what you're going to be doing with every other plane. You fly in, find the furball, time the furball well, and shoot your missiles at people that aren't paying attention, and that pretty much just sums up the battle rating. And the higher the BR you go, like this 11.0 F-104S or its big brother, the 11.3 F-104S ASA, the more it matters to have teammates. Because what do you think I'm going to be doing if something like an F-16 or a MiG-29 or Mirage 2000 decides it wants to hop on my 6 and just says, look man, your game's over, I'm going to come kill you? Well, there's absolutely nothing you're going to be doing about that in the F-104. The 11.7 and 12.0 planes, or even God forbid 12.3 planes, outclass you in every metric possible. I'm talking speed, acceleration, top speed, of course, maneuverability, climb rate. A lot of planes and the higher BRs are just going to do everything better than you, and you pretty much just have to cope with it. And by coping with it, I mean be around teammates. Unfortunately, the AIM-9P or AIM-9J, whatever it is, from the F4 junk ends my game. I really thought that was going to be easier to flare. It kind of surprised me how I didn't flare that, but nonetheless, back to the skill issue side of things, I did enjoy the F-104 flyout, and specifically the F-104G. I think you guys should give it a try. And with that, thank you guys for watching. I'll see ya.